It is my pleasure to introduce to you, I call him the great one, ladies and gentlemen, Mark Levin.
It's time for a counter revolution is what it's time for. And we don't need new principles. We need to understand our principles. We need to understand where they come from. We need to understand why they're important. We need to understand why men and women in uniform died face down in hellholes all over the world to defend these principles. We don't need to rewrite them. We don't need to amend them. We need to run on them. Now, we owe those men and women in uniform something, and we owe them the protection of this society here at home from the fifth column that's undermining this society while they're on the battlefield fighting the terrorists. We've got to be on the political battlefield and fight back these liberal hordes, contain them, and then defeat them.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, my friends. It is I, Mark Levin. Our number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. Well, we have this decision by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, actually a 3-judge panel of the court, a 2-to-1 majority opinion. That's all it takes anymore. On same-sex marriage. It's a very bizarre opinion, which I'll explain in a little bit. We've got the Obama administration, as we've discussed at great length, violating the religion clause in the First Amendment, claiming that everybody has a right to contraception, and no institution has a right to deny it to them, even though it's available, if not freely, throughout the country, in every town, in every county, in every state. But that's not good enough. And this is how tyranny works. This is how utopian statism works. They say they're trying to balance the needs of people who seek contraception, women in particular, because of sterilization and the I don't know what they even call that pill. But in any event, so that trumps everything. And the government's going to decide who wins and who loses. This government is a steamroller. It is a steamroller. You really have to be deaf, dumb, and blind to miss what's going on in this country. You really do. Now, several weeks ago, now you hear people talking about this. This is very, very important that we keep talking about it, post-constitutionalism, because that's what you're looking at, post-constitutionalism. The Constitution has been under attack for 100 years, and it's really under attack right now. What's left of it? I said what's left of it. And on the day my book came out, I was on Sean Hannity's TV show on Fox. This is, how long ago? About 3 weeks ago. And here was a short part of the discussion that took place on Hannity on the Fox News channel. This is back January 17th. Cut one, go.
Without getting into all the details right now, you actually make the case in this book that we live in a post-constitutional America. You have a whole chapter on that. What does that mean?
It means that much of what the federal government does is not authorized by the Constitution. Now, when you say that, you get political responses like, oh, you want to do away with this and you want to do away with that. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying much of what goes on in the federal government, although I'd like to do away with most of it, much of what goes on in the federal government has no constitutional basis whatsoever. And this was part of a scheme real scheme hatched by a number of the leftists about a century ago. And you know them, Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson didn't make any bones about his contempt for the Declaration and individualism, and that's what this is, an attack on the individual. He made no bones about his contempt for the Constitution. Woodrow Wilson said in a speech before he became president that the government's like a body. You can't have one organ working against the other. In other words, you can't have separation of powers. So he spent his presidency, as did subsequent Democrats, trying to evade the Constitution or rewrite it. FDR, of course, did the same thing. FDR attacked the Constitution. And Cass Sunstein, who now works for Obama, he made the point that we now live under FDR's Constitution. You know what that means? Mm-hmm. A powerful, centralized government, exactly what the framers of the Constitution rejected.
You talk about the subtitle, The Making of America. You end the book with this question. So, my fellow countrymen, what do you choose? Ameritopia or America? Is America at that close of a crossroads, that the America that we grew up knowing, loving, cherishing, the one that talked about the individual and freedom and responsibility is likely gone?
Ameritopia is here. The question is how far we're going to go with this. We are not a purely constitutional republic anymore. The states have so limited power, and yet when we were founded, it was the other way around. We're not a representative republic really in the truest sense anymore. We have this massive administrative state with, hundreds of thousands, if not several million bureaucrats who are making laws and issuing them every day, 80,000 pages last year. So that's not a representative republic. So what are we? What are we? We are a nation that has heavy centralized power. It's getting more centralized by the day. Every so-called reform is said to require more government, more bureaucracy, more taxation. In pursuit of what?
In pursuit of what? Oh, I'm back live. In pursuit of what? A fantasy, which to many of us is a nightmare. You see, what's interesting is this attack on the Constitution is now out of the closet, if you will. And as I explained in the first chapter of Ameritopia, clearly utopianism is incompatible with constitutionalism. And ladies and gentlemen, you're seeing it play out right in front of you. Utopianism requires power to be concentrated in a central authority with maximum latitude to transform and control. Conversely, a constitution establishes parameters that define the form and the limits of government. So in the United States, what upsets Ruth Bader Ginsburg and all the other libs is that the Constitution divides, disperses, and delineates governmental power. It grants the central government not plenary, but enumerated powers. And it further deconcentrates power through three branches of the central government, reserving the rest of the governmental powers to the states and the people. But we can't have that, can we, in a utopia? The Constitution enshrines a governing framework intended to ensure the longevity of the existing society and to stifle potential tyranny. So for the mastermind, the Ruth Bader Ginsburgs, the Barack Obamas, and so forth, where the Constitution is believed useful to utopian ends, it will be invoked. Where it is not, under the pretense of legitimate differences of interpretation, it will be abandoned outright or remade through various doctrinal schemes and administrative evasions. For the mastermind, the Constitution's words are as undeserving of respect as the rest of American history. In fact, as the rest of human history. The words will be used to muddle and disarrange, not inform and clarify. And moreover, the Constitution's authors, ratifiers, and present-day proponents will be dismissed as throwbacks. To follow them will be to renounce modernity and progress, and yet to follow the mastermind is to renounce the American founding and heritage. I wrote this in July. Nothing's changed. It's gotten worse. I'm doing on this program that which is never done on radio anymore. Never. I'm not doing quick hits. Quick hits on the news. I'll get to that. I'll get to the soundbite. But I'm doing something on radio that is never done. We're having a real discussion, a real explanation. as if you're sitting in an advanced high school class or in a college classroom. And it's all serious. It's not merely academic, because it's going on all around you right now. And it should concern the hell out of you. I don't care what your political background is. I don't care how wealthy you are or not. Chapter 11, Post-Constitutional America. You know, some people, folks, make the mistake. They say, oh, there's Mark on the radio talking about his book. No, here's Mark on the radio talking about current events and putting them in perspective in ways that nobody else can or will. That's what Mark's doing on the radio. Before it's too late. Any dunce can sit behind this microphone and endlessly crack jokes or talk to lesbians or repeat what was said the day before by somebody else. Post-constitutional America. When John Locke, the great philosopher John Locke, who was relied on by the revolutionaries, the American revolutionaries, who was relied on by our founders when they wrote the Declaration of Independence and adopted it. When John Locke wrote about the nature of man and the state of nature, he faced skepticism from some of his contemporaries. But his description was not theoretical. Indeed, not only was his influence on the American founding significant, but he rightly pointed to America as evidence for his observations and conclusions that individual self-interest and self-preservation, the right to life and liberty, the use of labor to improve and possess property, and equality and justice form the natural state of human existence. And where did all this come from? Locke wondered. It was God-given. That's where it came from. Man can reason. Man can learn from experience. He must. Man can acquire knowledge and understanding. But where does man come from? And where do all these attributes come from? I'm not done. Unfortunately, we have to take a break. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.